Yeah. So I'm sure you're doing a lot of preaching right now. You're taking a lot of that currently. So what does that look like for you? What does that sermon prep time look like? What are you using? Where are you at? What's that process look like for you?
Yeah, for me, it's always different every week. I am right now. Lately, it has been an every weekend thing, so it's very much that schedule. I find the process that it's changed so much. And let me just talk through this because I think it's important as a communicator to allow yourself to evolve, to experiment with different things, to find what saddle, so to speak, fits you the best, what shoe fits you the best, what jacket, whatever example you want to use. You got to find the thing that works for you. And so I say that to say to communicators out there, allow yourself to go on that journey, to try things and to set things aside, to incorporate new things. I can remember times where I would sit and I would literally, one thing that would help me even track through my thoughts, because I knew what I wanted to communicate and I would bullet it out. But like a lot of the transitions, I wouldn't know how I was going to go from one thing to another. So I would literally practice typing out the whole thing that I would say from beginning to end. I would just type it once and then I would throw it in my trash, throw it away. But it was a way to work through in my mind what I was going to be doing so that when I went to preach it, it wasn't the first time I had worked through those transitions intellectually. Now, what I do more that's working for me now is I let the concept, the thoughts, the ideas, it's almost like a crock pot. Like if I get a thought or idea, I let it simmer before I sit down and kind of write it out as long as I can. Because the more I think about it, the more I pray about it, the more I meditate on it, the more I'm able to actually own it internally. And I feel like the more I've owned it internally, when I actually sit down to craft it, then I'm most prepared to actually give my best shot of what I want to communicate when I'm talking to people on a Sunday. So the longer that I can internalize it, I put things in my phone. I keep a running list depending on what topic or what, like for me, like usually what's coming next. I'll have kind of some thoughts or ideas for maybe a passage of scripture that I'm reading as I'm going throughout my day with my kids, or things like this. My schedule's kind of hectic. So as I get it, I make sure I put it in my phone. So then I have this whole internal well, external well to actually pull from when I sit down to say, okay, hey, here's where we're down now to the weekend. But it's not as difficult now than to internalize my content because it's already internalized, if that makes sense, versus sitting down to write it like an essay. I've done it that way too, where you sit down and you're, reading a passage of scripture and what thoughts am I going to pull out of this? Well, then what I found is I'm trying to take something that I've written and to get it in me internally. It comes out a whole lot more naturally when I get it internally first and then work through the kinks, or whatever in my prep time, if that makes sense. I think that it's an evolutionary process. For me, it has been so. I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But if I was giving any tips, allow yourself to experiment with different things that may work for you. Everybody has a clinic on how you should prepare a sermon, but remember that clinic came from what works for them and their psychology and their giftings and their talents and their abilities. Yours are most likely a little bit different. So it may not work for you. So again, it all comes back to the authenticity thing for me, learning from people, but letting myself kind of, again, find the shoe that fits.
Yeah, I think you're right on right there. Trying some different things, right? Like the Judah Smith 7 points or the Andy Stanley 1 point. Is it the, whatever it might be, right? And you can kind of morph that into some of your own. I think taking some of those elements, trying some of them, figuring those out, that's good. But I think what you're saying too is not just saying, okay, this is exactly my style, but even once you kind of feel it, kind of allowing that to evolve over time as well.
Man, find your voice. If there's anything I like you said, I've grown up in the church. So I've been, preaching and stuff like that, whatever you want to call it, for a long time, but it's different, so different. And I think one of the things that I wish I would have done differently is taken time to find my voice early on. I went through a time where for well over a year, I didn't listen to a single preaching podcast because I needed to figure out.
Are you allowed to say that?
Well, I just did. I don't fit the conventional mold anyway. You got the wrong guy.
We got time out, man. You're the wrong guy.
So over a year, I didn't listen to a single preaching podcast because I felt like that's what I need to do to find my voice. Whether you like it, all the people you admire, it's human to pick up things about them. But if you don't really know who you are and tap into that, you're literally by default going to just become another whatever, another version of something. So I think that even if that's similar to somebody that you admire and you may end up being that, taking time to actually be okay with that and go within yourself and tap into the internal well of what gift has God placed in you and what is that supposed to sound like or feel like. And no doubt we have this responsibility to hone our craft. I'm not talking about that, but I think that you can only hone your craft once you first identify your voice. And when you know your voice and you know like what you are supposed to be and own it on a fundamental level where you're completely not trying to jump through hoops to appease people or to just get speaking gigs or just to be the next hot preacher. I mean, but I'm talking about trying to find my voice so that I can be effective doing whatever it is that God put me on the face of the planet to do with the voice and the influence that he's given me. Then and only then can you embark on the journey, I think, to be a skilled, bettering your communication skill in a way that's authentic.